Well, like it or not, I'm back, and yes, we're going to be taking a second look at the 4K 240Hz Alienware AW3225QF Quantum Dot OLED gaming monitor. Wow, that's a lot, and the reason is because when I initially reviewed this thing, it had a ton of problems, but there have been 2 different firmware updates since then, claiming to have brought some pretty important fixes. Did it actually fix it? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Now, the firmware update we're taking a look at today is the M2B103 update, and the update before that was supposed to fix the sRGB problems, and allegedly I'd heard HDMI as well, and then this one is supposed to be so that you can actually turn off Dolby Vision and get an accurate picture and not have it forced on at all times. And let's go ahead and start off first with the actual gamma problems. So, is it fixed? I mean, take a look first of all at the original gamma problems that I found. Here you can see that on the launch firmware, it was over brightening shadows quite a bit and it looked pretty bad. And in fact, for some reason, this was translating into HDR for me as well. I'm not sure if this was the case for all monitors, but that's what I saw. And so it was just kind of a mess for editing of any type. Now, the good news is, yes, it does now follow the sRGB curve correctly, and everything is looking pretty good. Now, it doesn't follow the 2.2 curve correctly necessarily. I mean, they seem to think that 2.2 equals sRGB. That's not the case. So if you put it to 2.2 on the monitor, just be aware it's actually following the sRGB curve. So I did go ahead and make an actual ICC profile for the 2.2 curve if you do prefer that. I know that I do. I think it looks far better on OLEDs and SDR, and I'll have that linked in my Patreon in the description below, and it'll also get you access to the Discord. But if you don't care about that and you're fine with sRGB, hey, that's totally cool, and at least it's accurate now, so that's really, really good to see. And even better, guys, they actually do have it properly following the sRGB curve in HDR when faced with SDR content as well, which is great to see. But also, yes, HDMI is fixed. You can indeed run 240Hz over HDMI, so that is really, really good to see. And overall, I just find it to be far less buggy. It seems to be working as intended pretty much all the time, with exception to Dolby Vision. So let's go ahead and talk about Dolby Vision. Yes, you can turn it off now. You simply go into the menu under Picture and set it to off. The only issue is sometimes it wants to fight you and it doesn't want to turn off, and you have to do it like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and then it'll finally turn off. And even worse, if you restart your computer or turn it off and on, or sometimes enable or disable HDR, it will then reset back to, well, Dolby Vision forced on. So it is a huge fight right now to get it to stay off. And for that reason, Dolby Vision issues, in my opinion, basically aren't fixed. But funnily enough, even though having Dolby Vision on all the time may technically be inaccurate, as it could lead to blown out highlights in some situations, as many people are reporting online, well, you know what? It does actually get you an overall brighter image on the display. To prove that, let's go ahead and take a look at first SDR content in Windows. Well, actually in HDR 1000 mode with the SDR content brightness slider set to the correct 46%, well, that only gets you 100 nits in Google Docs just on your day-to-day usage, which is pretty low. And in fact, the HDR 400 mode on that same brightness level is actually far, far higher and much closer to what I would expect out of the monitor. Likewise, the Dolby Vision, even with the Peak 1000 mode enabled on the monitor, is giving you the same 184 nits. And then if you further slide it up to 100%, it will give you the full 255 nits that you would expect to see out of this monitor in your day-to-day SDR usage. So really weird stuff going on there, and I have noticed this with some other Quantum Dot OLED monitors as well. They seem to want to under brighten SDR content in Windows for some reason, especially in the HDR Peak 1000 mode for a lot of these monitors, it seems like. And in this case, it kind of looks like essentially Dolby Vision will give you the full potential in SDR, as well as potentially give you those 1000 nits peak brightness as well. So is it the better mode to use? Maybe. It depends on what you prefer. Do you want the absolute best accuracy or higher brightness? I'll leave that up to you. And also, I'll just leave you guys with this one. Here you can see that it can affect the gaming brightness as well, with Dolby Vision being generally a little bit brighter than the HDR 1000 mode, despite the fact that that shouldn't be the case, really, especially in games that don't actually support Dolby Vision. So really weird, but let's go ahead and wrap this up by talking about, is this monitor actually worth buying now? Because let's be honest, in its launch firmware state, it really wasn't, in my opinion. But has that changed? Well, first we got to talk about a couple issues. First of all, a lot of people are still getting shipping damage on these monitors because of the lack of a plastic peel, and for whatever reason, the bubble wrap that they use seems to scratch it up quite a bit. Both monitors that I've gotten from Dell have had basically irreversible damage on the display, and I know I'm not the only one here, and that's a big problem. Hopefully they do go ahead and change that. I have been talking to them about that, but until that happens, the chances of you getting a damaged monitor are probably pretty high. And sure, you typically can't see it when the display is on, but this is an expensive monitor and that just shouldn't be the case. And then we have Dolby Vision is an absolute battle to get to stay off, which is obviously a problem as well. And then of course the low HDR 1000 brightness in Windows for whatever reason. I have no idea and it doesn't make any sense. Maybe it's some sort of limitation in the monitor firmware from Samsung, I don't know, but either way, that just shouldn't be the case in my opinion. You should be able to hit up to 250 nits of brightness full screen in Windows and not just test patterns. That is just totally unacceptable in my opinion. And unfortunately, that probably is going to be the case for many other quantum dot OLEDs as well, unless they have effectively active tone mapping enabled. With that stuff in mind, do I actually recommend the monitor now? Because let's be honest, it's in a way better state today, way less buggy, way less frustrating to use, and is actually very usable for editing. And I'm gonna say yes and no. It's kind of weird still. I mean, between the shipping damage and the weird brightness stuff going on with the monitor, it is still kind of annoying to use sometimes, but it's also right now, since you can't buy any other 4K OLEDs, the best one on the market, and I do assume that they are going to continue to fix these minor little bugs, since they've been very quick to fix the ones that I've pointed out to them so far, and I am still in contact with them discussing the further problems, so they're probably going to fix them. So with that in mind, yeah, I probably would, but it does come with those caveats of you might have to play a game of sending back multiple monitors to get one that's not permanently damaged, and of course, if you do value 100% accuracy in HDR, you are going to have to probably fight with Dolby Vision until they fix it. Whether you're looking to connect a new console, gaming PC, or just need a fast and reliable HDMI cable to connect over long distances, Rupro has you covered with their certified 8K HDMI 2.1 fiber optic cable available in sizes of up to 50 feet and can deliver a perfect full 48 gigabits per second connection over distances other cables could only dream of reaching. And with 48 gigabits per second of bandwidth, it can easily drive 8K 60 FPS or 4K 144 FPS 10-bit HDR video through its ultra-thin, flexible, and durable housing, and it even supports ER. So if you're in the market for a cable that can drive a beautiful new TV or monitor, be sure to check out Rupro on Amazon today.